Hello, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. Welcome to yet another session of AMA, Ask Me Anything. Tonight's topic is, have you borrowed too much? And we have tonight on our panel, our friends from credit counseling, whom I would introduce later. For those of you who have not heard about IFL, Institute for Financial Literacy, let me just give you a brief introduction. We are a joint venture between MoneySense, National Financial Education Initiative, and Singapore Polytechnic Enterprise. The purpose of IFL is to provide free and unbiased financial education to members of the public. This evening, I will show you, if you have not already been there, where you can find out more information about our complimentary public talks. Because of COVID-19, most of our talks these days are done online through Zoom or other platforms. Because we provide unbiased education, one disclaimer I need to mention is that any information that we speak about this evening are purely for educational purposes, to illustrate and to explain certain points. Should you want to act on any of the information, you are well advised to do your due diligence or consult a licensed financial advisor before making a choice to invest or purchase any products. Tonight's talk is going to be on borrowing. Have you borrowed too much? So are you keeping up with your loans and credit card payments? How can you minimize interest charges on your credit card? Are all forms of borrowing bad? Are there such things known as good debts? What will happen if you miss payments to your creditors? Questions like this and many more this evening, we would take the opportunity to answer them. Before this evening, already many of you have sent in your questions. We thank you for that. But the priority this evening is to answer live questions on Slido, which I'll show you the QR code later on. Now, before we move on to answering Q&A, perhaps I want to run a quick Facebook poll to see what are some of the habits that our participants have. So the question is, do you pay your credit card balances in full at the end of the month? The answer is yes or no. If you are looking at your Facebook page, you should see the poll questions coming up with two choices, yes or no. So I will give you 30 seconds or so to make your votes. Did you know that credit card interest, it's between 25 to 27%, depending on which credit card issuer. And at that high interest rate, if you owe the credit card company $10,000, did you know how long it would take for $10,000 to double to become $20,000? 3 years. It takes 3 years at 24% interest rate. So that's the power of compound interest. Compound interest can snowball your debt very, very quickly, which is why we advise you to pay off your credit card balances in full at the end of the month so that you do not roll over your debt and be trapped in this snowballing effect. So the answers from the poll have come in. 100% of you voted yes. So I am quite glad that you are using your credit card responsibly, using all the benefits that credit cards do provide to you, such as rebates and points, but at the same time, sensibly paying off your credit card balances at the end of the month. Before we go to the Q&A segment, let me go through one or two slides very quickly on IFL educational pointers about borrowing. So are you managing your debt wisely? Now, before you decide to buy anything on credit, ask yourself, do you really need to buy it in the first place? Is it a need or is it a want? make sure that you prioritize the needs, and for the ones, perhaps you could put them on the back burner whilst you focus on the essential item. Ask yourself, is there another way to pay for this? Is there a barter trade opportunity? Is there a discount or sale whereby you can purchase something cheaper? Or can you save up for it? Can you buy it later after you saved up enough to pay for it? You already have monthly expenses, other essential payments that you need to make. Can you still afford it? So make sure that you've done your budget properly, accounting for all the expenses, especially the essential ones that you need to make every month. And then what is left over, are you able to afford the monthly installment from the debt that you will take? How much should you borrow? We suggest that you should not spend more than 35% of your monthly income on all debt repayments. How much do I have to pay every month? So make sure you understand your installment payment obligation. Ask the bank or ask the financier for a schedule that clearly stipulates exactly how much you have to pay each month, how much is an installment, how are the interests calculated, so that you know your payment obligations over a long period of time. When you borrow money, you need to pay off every cent plus interest. So that is very important to make sure you can do that. How long does it take to pay off the loan? The longer you take to pay off the loan, the more interest you will accumulate. So try to pay down your loan as quickly as appropriate based on your budget, so that you spend less on your interest. Use many of the free calculators available, especially on the MoneySense website and on the IFL website, whereby you can then calculate how much interest you're paying on this loan, and whether you are able to keep it within your budget. Another important point, if you really need to borrow, make sure you borrow from legal sources. Never borrow from money lenders because they are illegal. The law will not be able to protect your safety or safeguard your interests in an event of unfair treatment. You and your family may be harassed or harmed should you fall back on your repayment. Definitely don't borrow from allons. How do you know they are legal or not? So there is a money lenders register that you can access on the MinLaw website, that you can tell whether these people are legal registered money lenders or not. Most importantly, if you receive an SMS message or unsolicited text or mail asking you to borrow money, then this is definitely illegal, because legal money lenders cannot solicit for business that way. Now, before we go to the Q&A segment this evening, I would like to introduce my fellow panelists, Ms. Tan Hui Min from Credit Counseling Singapore. Hello, Hui Min, good evening. Welcome to our panel this evening.
Hi, Siju, good evening. Thank you for inviting us to share.
Okay, Hui Min, not all our participants this evening may know about credit counseling. So perhaps you can say a few words to introduce yourself.
Yes, please. Yes, I would like to let you all know what is credit counseling about. Okay, we are a non-profit organization. We are a charity. We are a registered member of the National Council for Social Service. And we aim to be a leading charity that fosters financial resilience and a trusted organization for all matters related to debts. Yeah, meaning that we do we do conduct financial literacy workshop, all right, promote responsible use of credit, all right, and we also do one-to-one credit counseling to help debt-distressed individuals to address their debt problems. And for suitable ones, if they are able and willing to make repayments, if they meet the criteria, we may be able to help them to work out a debt management program. Basically, it's a money installment debt repayment plan. And since 2004, we have counseled more than 35,000 individuals with a debt issue, of which about 2/3 of them, we managed to help them to work out a debt management program. As said, it is a money installment debt repayment plan. All right, and so because the plan will take into consideration of their payment capacity, so they will have enough money to pay to feed the family, and at the same time to make repayment to their creditors and look forward to become debt-free one day. So for people who have an unsecured debt problem like owing to credit cards, credit lines, personal loans, or money lenders loans, yeah, they can approach us, Credit Counseling Singapore, for assistance. Okay, just to share with you some statistic. The 30 over 1,000 people who have sought help from us, many are married with children, all right, as you can see from the data here. We have more gentlemen than ladies, all right, and they are between the age of 31 to 50, meaning they have probably children to bring up and also have aged parents to take care of. So heavy family burdens is often cited as a reason, all right, and their income, gross income, okay, is many of them are actually between earning up to $6,000 per month. Not exactly low income, all right, because you do need to earn a certain level of income to qualify for your credit cards. And the debt size, more than half of them are owing less than $50,000. So if for someone who is earning $3,000 a month with a debt size of $50,000, it will take quite a while to pay off, even without using a single dollar a month. Yeah. So the amount of debt is quite substantial. Okay, the common reasons cited by our help seekers oftentimes are job related, meaning they could be jobless. It could also mean that they were unemployed for a while, or they are earning lower income than before. Okay, support family, as mentioned before, a lot of them are kind of having children to bring up and also aged parents to take care of. And we also have people, of course, mentioned overspending, spending more than they earn. Okay, and the other common reasons cited includes business related. Yes, we do have business owners, small business owners who come to us for help with their debt issue. Oftentimes, they will use their personal credit to fund their business, pay for their business overheads, things like that. And medical, all right, as you can see, the percentage add up to more than 100%, meaning that normally people get into debt not for just one reason, but for multiple reasons. Okay, yeah. Okay, to seek help from CCS, all right, for people with a debt issue, if they really need help, you know, to deal with the debt problem, just to share, all right, we have info talk, which we conduct via the webinar. It's a weekly talk. All right, it's free of charge. People can just register and attend, and you don't need to have a debt problem to attend. Okay, and we provide information on how to manage a debt situation, like what to do, what not to do. Okay, what are the options available to address the debt issue other than our debt management program? And we also talk about, you know, if I don't make payment, what can my creditors do to me? You know, including legal actions like writ of seizure and sale and bankruptcy application. All right, so after attending the talk, if you know what to do, good for you, you'll move on to do whatever that can help you to resolve your debt problem. But sometimes some of us may have a debt issue that's quite serious, or we may be so overwhelmed, we don't really know where to start. Okay, so after attending the talk, hopefully you have a better idea, but you can submit your counseling request to us. So with your submission with supporting documents like your income statement, your credit bureau report, we'll fix an appointment to talk to you on a one-to-one basis to help you understand what is your financial position, what are the options that may be applicable to resolve your debt issue, okay, and hopefully you'll be able to find a suitable solution. All right, and for those of you who are suitable to work out a debt management program, if you want to, we will then put up a debt management program for your creditors to review. And if your creditors approve it, in other words, now the borrower can then pay what he say he can afford to pay. And as long as he make payment, the creditors will not call him anymore, and he can see himself become debt-free in a few years' time.
Thank you very much, Hui Min. Now, before we move on to the actual Q&A segment, I actually have some questions that I want to ask you.
Sure.
Right? So let's get that started. So Hui Min, last session of AMA, my colleagues spoke about financial fitness. So there were several financial ratios that my colleague talked about, like the mortgage service ratio, the non-debt service ratios in particular, whereby we recommend to keep below 30% for mortgage service debt and 15% for non-mortgage debt service. Now, what happens if someone do the calculation of this ratio and find out that they are in the unhealthy range, meaning that is exceeding 30% or exceeding 15% in the non-service, non-debt, non-mortgage debt service? What can they do? What advice would you give to this person?
Okay, I suppose it is always good to stock take, all right, and to make sure that your finances are in good health, all right. So when we realize that if, let's say, I have too much borrowing, okay, so one way is to what can I do to reduce my borrowing, okay, and to reduce meaning that I need to not just make the standard payment amount, but if possible, pay more, okay. And while I'm trying to pay down my debts, please do not incur more debts. And how not to incur more debts? Meaning, if I have a credit card, stop using my credit card. All right. And also don't make purchases through the BNPL platform, okay? Because buying on the BNPL is actually also owing, you know, because as long as there's an outstanding, that means it's a debt. Okay, so so for people who realize that he has too much borrowing, first thing to do is actually to stop creating new debts by stop using the credit card, stop buying on installment payment arrangement, all right? And second thing is to reduce the discretionary expenses. Now, what is discretionary expenses? Meaning expenses that if you don't, you don't have to incur, all right? It's not like a contract thing that you must pay. It's not like your conservancy charges that you must pay. These are non-discretional. So for example, eating up, okay? For example, buying, buying new clothes, buying new shoes, buying new electronic gadgets. So stop buying all these discretionary expenses. That will give me a little bit more so-called money that I can use to top up payment to, you know, reduce my so-called debt servicing ratio. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Hui Min. In a previous life, I was in the corporate banking department. So I spent many years lending money. And I often feel that if a debtor is in trouble, I think the first thing is to take the initiative and approach the lender to seek help. I think being honest helps before you are actually in dire circumstances, right? Right. Another question. The lending landscape in Singapore can be quite confusing for people with different regulators. So you have banks, credit card companies under MAS, then you have money lenders under MinLaw, then you have other sort of agencies that also provide like things like car loan, leasing, and then you can owe money to town councils, Singtel, and other service provider. So if someone is in debt and are owing to all these various creditors, you know, quite complicated. How can that person seek help? Declare bankruptcy, maybe?
Please do not immediately think of bankruptcy, okay? I mean, there are different options available to address the debt issue. All right, if the person, okay, if a person is really in debt to multiple creditors, all right, including arrears, owing to, you know, town council and, you know, I think if he really doesn't know what to do, sorry, I'm going to use just he, okay, easier to talk rather than he and she, okay, I would suggest that the person may want to come forward to CCS if he doesn't really know what to do. But you mentioned earlier, go to your creditors, which I think this is a good move. All right, it is always good to go to the creditors to see if they have an in-house debt relief plan. But sometimes that may not work out still. Okay, so when the creditor's own relief plan still doesn't work out, and the person is really lost, I would suggest that come to CCS, first attend our free info talk on how to manage that situation, get some idea, and then you need be submit the request for one-to-one counseling session. Then my colleague, the credit counselor, will then talk to the person. Because of COVID, we now do phone counseling. All right. Then we will spend time to help the person to understand his financial position and also the options available to address the debt problem, what it means and what are consequences. Okay, how those options may apply to him. Yeah, and hopefully that will help him to find out a most suitable solution to address his debt issue. Yeah.
Thank you, Hui Min. So now I'll tell all my participants, if you have any issues or challenges with your debt, especially if it's even in the early stages, go to see credit counseling. You will be able to get some help or some directions where you will point them to. Great. Now, I know there are questions coming in, but I cannot help but ask you one more.
Sure.
And that is, sometimes we feel that the debt problems are quite private and personal. I may not even want to tell my spouse about it. Should I be concerned about such privacy issues when I approach credit counseling, even let's say if I were to take things one step further and get you to help me? Should I be concerned about these privacy issues?
Okay, that's a very good question. As you know, there's this PDPA, Personal Data Protection Act in place. Even without the PDPA, when we first started offering our service in 2004, we do protect our clients' confidentiality, meaning that whoever comes to seek help from us, we do not disclose his debt information to his employer, nor do we disclose it to his family members. So you can be assured, we only discuss with the borrower, and if the borrower can really work out a debt management program, and since we need to put up the debt management program to his creditors, then of course we will then liaise with his creditors and the borrower. But it will just these three parties basically.
Okay, good to know. So I don't have to worry that, or at least that's one less worry for me. All right, with that, I think we can move on to the live questions and the earlier questions that participants has submitted. If you haven't already noticed this QR code on my screen, if you just scan it, it will bring you into Slido. Or if you want to, you can just type the questions in the comments section of the Facebook page. With that, my colleague is going to switch over to the Slido screen to see what questions have been asked this evening, and then I will take those questions. Okay, so the first question is buy now, pay later a loan, BNPL. A year ago, I probably would not know what BNPL stand for, maybe like a soccer team or something like that. But this is of the rage nowadays. It's one of those, if you can say, new fintech kind of phenomena. Earlier, Hui Min, you already mentioned that BNPL, buy now, pay later, in a way, it's paying your purchases by installments. It's a form of a loan. Now, I also heard people telling me that actually BNPL platform, most of them actually don't charge any interest on the purchase and allow me to pay by installment. So isn't that good in the sense that I enjoy an interest-free relief and at the same time be able to spread out my installment over time? What do you think, Women?
Okay, I guess, yes, you can see it that way. Just because there's no interest charge doesn't make it not a loan or not a debt. Anything that is outstanding owing, it is a debt and it's still a loan. There is late fee, even though there is no interest charge, meaning that if I did not make payment in time, they do charge me late fee, and the late fee can be rather substantial. But I think more importantly is that because of the convenience it offers, all right, and because it allowed me to pay by installment, sometimes if we are not careful, we may overcommit, meaning make too many purchases via the BNPL platform to the extent that my monthly installment payment for the next few months could be rather substantial. But I do agree, it does provide the convenience, all right? So it does ease my cash flow. So, but I would caution that as long as there is still an outstanding, I may be able to pay the $100 this month, but I need to also make sure I can pay the balance $100 for the next 1 to 2 months, depending what is the payment arrangement. Yeah.
I suppose the outstanding installments that yet to be paid would be captured probably on Credit Bureau's report?
At this juncture, no. My understanding is
see.
that BNPL is not a data contributor to the Credit Bureau Singapore. No, it's not.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. So there's a little bit of kind of a gray area here. And
Yes.
of course, second question is about credit cards, fairly similar. I suppose installment payment has been around for a long time. There's installment payment charged to the credit card. There is installment payments payable by white goods provider in the shopping center when I buy a TV set or when I buy a refrigerator. So that's something which is not new, except that I think in many of these installment payments, the interest rate that will be charged is known upfront. So in a way, you can sort of estimate how much you can be on the hook for. And I suppose in the old days, we would not take on installment payment or loans unless it is a fairly big purchases. Whereas nowadays with BNPL, especially with the younger folks, very low cost items can be charged can be paid by BNPL platform and by installment. So something as little as $50 or $100. And I guess in a way you can you may sort of fall into overspending trap if you're not careful in keeping track of it. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So let me look at the next question. Moving down, is interest rate stated in the advertisement, the actual interest rate I need to pay? That's a good one. So for example, if I take a personal loan or I take a car loan, very often I'm told the interest is like maybe 2% or 2-point-something% flat. That seems kind of low. And then there is the other effective interest rate. How does it work? How does it work, Hui-Min?
Okay, I suppose the interest rate advertised, sometimes it is not the actual interest rate we pay, okay, as you probably are aware, especially when there is a little asterisk next to the figure. So the reads the asterisk wants you to go and read the fine print and tell you actually what is the EIR, the effective interest rate. Okay, for example, let's take the example of a car loan interest. All right. You see, the thing is, most, if not all, the car loans are calculated using the interest payment is actually based on flat rate. So they may say the interest rate is, let's say, 2.99%. All right, but because it's calculated using flat rate, that interest amount is based on the original loan amount. So as I pay down my car loan, the interest amount is still the same, okay, because it's based on original loan amount. So ultimately, the interest I paid is more than the 2.99%. I hope that kind of clarify, that it could be a different figure. Yes.
I also know that I think now the rules is that the advertiser must put the effective interest rate somewhere in the advertisement, even if it is in a very small print.
Yes.
So if you are not sure how it's calculated, the best way is to look for the word effective interest rate. And if you are speaking to the salesperson in the showroom, the best way is to ask the salesperson, what is the effective interest rate? I guess the salesperson is obligated to tell you what it is. So in that sense, if my math is not very good, I don't have to worry about calculating it. I just need to find out or ask the question. Yeah. Okay. Next question. I recently realized that I have outstanding balances on my 3 credit cards that adds up almost 3 months of my income. What should I do? I think earlier, Hui Min, you've already alluded to it to some extent that when you are in a situation whereby you cannot manage your debt, I think the first thing you need to do is to stop accumulating more debt. So here, 3 months of income in credit card balances is already pushing the boundary of what is sort of allowable under the rules in terms of owing. And I think the first thing to do is to look at your budget, right? To make sure you look at your expenses outside of the essential expenses, outside of the fixed expenses that you have to pay every month. Those variable expenses, is there a way to reduce it? Is there a way to cut back so that you can create additional space, spare cash at the end of the month? And as Hui Min, you alluded to earlier, try to pay down those high interest debt quickly. And credit card interest is one of those high credit card interest debt, right? At 24%, I said earlier during the Facebook Live poll, it only takes you 3 years to double that credit card balance outstanding. And if you have difficulty paying off your credit card today, unless your income doubles in 3 years, you will have definitely problems paying off this debt when they snowball to 2 times the amount. Am I right to say that, Hui Min?
Yes, you are correct. Yes.
Okay, so let's look at the next question. Oh, this one, helper, right? So nowadays, money lenders don't just target traditional customers. They also go to the foreign domestic worker, the foreign worker space, especially these people are fairly low income and they incur debt even before they get started work in Singapore. So I'm told that my helper has taken a loan from a shop in town. Okay, hopefully this is a shop that is registered and licensed. I think they probably is, right? Do you think that she has borrowed from an Along since she did not borrow from a bank? Okay, this one I may have to look to you, Hui Min. What do you think? I go to Toa Payoh Central and then I see people queuing up to go into this shop and then coming out, and some of them are counting their cash. Does this look like a legal lender, you think?
Generally speaking, I would say that if it's a proper shop in a so-called populated area, normally I think they are legal licensed money lender, meaning they are licensed. Okay, but of course you do hear stories that sometimes otherwise. Okay, but I think the important thing is this: since you know that your helper has taken a loan, right? So I don't know whether she told you or you hearsay. I think it's good to verify before if you can. If she confirms she has taken a loan, then I think it's always advisable to advise her to make sure she pay her loan on time. As you know, licensed money lender loans is for short term, and
Yes.
the interest is higher than credit card. Actually,
Yep.
Credit card is easily 2% per month, but for a LML loan, the interest can be as high as 4%.
That's correct.
Okay. And not to talk about the late fee, all right? So remind her to make payment promptly. But I think as an employer, you can help, meaning that you pay your employee, you pay your helper promptly so
That's
that she
correct.
has the money to go and make payment.
That's
okay,
correct.
so that is very important.
That's
Yes.
I think a lot of times people fall into so-called debt trap, mainly because they may not know better, and they may be forced in by the exigency of circumstances. At that moment in time, certain payments are urgent and they don't have the spare cash. So they just take whatever, grabs at whatever that's available to help them tide through this. And you're absolutely right. Being an understanding employer, and in particular, making sure that you also keep your domestic worker, your helper, apprised and financially savvy. I think every one of us, whether we are working in a white collar job or a blue collar job, it is always good to be financially aware and to be sort of apprised of the challenges and the ills of over borrowing. And where else can you get all this information? It's from public sort of neutral, do good source like credit counseling, your education talk, IFL's workshop, our websites, and our outreach efforts such as our AMA this evening. So good to get informed regardless of the station in life, right? So moving on, I heard that can be good. Is that true? Well, I suppose this whole evening we've been talking about the dangers of falling into debt traps. It seems to give the impression that borrowing is not a good thing. I suppose there are situations whereby borrowings can be a good thing in a sense that it is a constructive loan or loan with a constructive purpose. Often, I remember as a credit officer in banking, we always ask the first question, what is the purpose of the loan? Why do you want to borrow this money? What do you want to do? Now, if the purpose of the loan is for a constructive purpose, such as buying a home, right? So it gives you stability, a shelter, so that you can focus on the important things in life of earning and providing for your family. Education loan, go to a university or go to tertiary education, get better qualifications, get a better job, get a better pay. Ultimately, these future benefits will work to pay off the loan. And so therefore, I guess you could consider those kind of borrowing to be constructive or good borrowing. Whereas other kind of debt, such as credit card debt, very, very rarely when I apply for a credit card, the application form asks me, what is the purpose of applying for the credit card, right? I mean, they are quite happy that as long as I can meet the income criteria, then and my credit score is okay, good, then they are happy to grant me the card. So I guess in those kind of debt whereby there are no identifiable purposes, there is always the danger of overspending and over borrowing. Perhaps those are considered as not good debt. And without surprise, the good debt like housing mortgage tend to have lower interest, and those we consider to be, let's say, not so good debt like credit card tend to have very much higher interest. So in finance, you always say, right, risk and return, right? So that the bank charges a much higher interest rate because the risk to the bank is a lot higher. I don't know whether you agree with me, Hui Min?
Yes, what you said is what I have in mind too. Basically a good debt should add value. A bad debt basically drains you. Yeah, costs more than what you actually benefit from it. Yes.
Okay. Ooh, next question is a bit technical. I'm buying a car and I heard from my friend that there is this thing called Rule of 78. What is it? I seem to recall this Rule of 78 is a way of calculating the interest owing, and it seems to have to do with a hire purchase agreement. So when you, let's say, take a 5-year car loan to buy a car, and then you decide to pay off in full the car loan, let's say in year 3, and you only have 2 more years left. You have 2 more years outstanding left to go. The Rule of 78 calculates the outstanding interest in such a way that it is actually more than if you had continued to pay the hire purchase for the next 2 years. Is that my understanding correct?
Yes, it basically means that there is more interest to be repaid in the earlier part of the loan tenure. So if you want to pay off your debt sooner, frankly speaking, you would have paid more interest in that sense. Yeah,
I see. So the monthly installment is equal, but the installment being equal, but the portion of the installment in the earlier years, more of it is actually paying interest than
yes,
principal.
correct.
So therefore, my principal actually reduces very little in the first 3 years, let's say, of the 5 years.
Yes.
So if I decide to pay off the car loan, actually my car loan is still quite a lot substantial principal remaining. So actually in the end,
correct.
The total interest paid is higher. So I guess the principle here is read and understand all the terms and conditions. Know how it impacts you in different situations, so that you won't be caught in a situation whereby you pay more than what you anticipate. Okay, so make sure you read those terms and conditions. Okay. Okay, next question has to do with credit card again. Is that if I make the minimum payment of my credit card every month, will I get into debt? Okay, so from what I understand about credit card, the first cycle, maybe the first 20 something days of your statement, you whatever you charge, actually you get kind of an interest-free period until the first statement, and then there's a due date. You will pay in full on the due date, and then you are back to zero balance, and then next month you start from zero again. But there's always an option for minimum payment, and I believe the minimum payment will be different for different credit card issuer. Some credit card issuer may say 3% of the outstanding, or $50, whichever is higher. Okay, so there is sort of a minimum amount that you have to pay off, and whatever minimum amount that you pay off, then the remaining balance will be rolled over to the next month, which means to say you will start fresh from day one of the next statement cycle, having incurred that remaining amount balance as a debt owing to the credit card company. And if I recall correctly, credit card debt are charged interest on a daily basis. So every day that you owe this balance, interest is calculated and added on to the principal. So actually 24% is not a monthly or annual kind of effective rate, but actually there's a daily interest compounding. So certainly if you make the minimum payment, the rest of the payments balance that you didn't pay off will become debt. And not only that, the debt will continue to grow on a daily basis based on daily compounding. Okay, right? Hui Min? Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So in short, frankly speaking, I mean, I'm going to say what the experience we have at Credit Counseling Singapore. A lot of times, our help seeker, why did they take so long to come to us is because they were able to manage the minimum payment until a time that they max out all their credit cards and they can't even service the minimum payment. Then they realize that they are really in serious debt problem. Yeah. So please do not just think that everything is okay because you can manage the minimum payment, because the actual outstanding amount may shock you, when you really take a look at your outstanding balance. Yeah.
I believe nowadays the rule is that the credit card company must enclose a schedule that sort of forecast the balance. If you have a balance, you will forecast how the balance will evolve over time, so that you, in a way, you are cognizant of how the debt will grow if you don't pay it off. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think they have been having this additional information for quite a number of years already. Okay. It's just that nowadays, a lot of times, I think we don't receive hard copies. And no. Even if we receive hard copies, we may not really read in details. Okay. Yeah. So, but I hope whoever has listened into this show, do stock take. Okay. If you do use credit cards, do take stock. Okay. If you do not have the habit of paying off in full, then please take a look. Okay, before it become a problem. But if you make a point to pay in full every month, then I think you should be quite okay.
Yeah, I think it's a good habit. It's a good habit to have. Okay, next question. I was in a business with 3 friends, but the company has closed down. We have an outstanding loan of about 100,000. I am a guarantor, so I guess business loan guarantor. So I need to only pay 25% of my share. Okay, so I guess the question is, I'm in business with friends. We took a loan to pay for finance the company. We all stood as guarantors. So when the company closed down and we still have an outstanding loan, is my share of the outstanding? Am I only guaranteeing my share of the outstanding, or am I responsible for more? We mean earlier you mentioned that a small proportion of your sort of clientele cites business failure as a reason for getting into debt and for coming to credit counseling. Maybe you want to take that question?
Okay, I think we need to take note. I may not be the principal borrower, but the fact that I am a guarantor, it means that I guarantee to pay when the principal borrower did not make the payment. So in this scenario, if I am in business with 3 friends, there are 4 of us, we took up a loan, it's 100K. Frankly speaking, normally loans like this, all guarantors are what they call joint and severally liable. Okay, so the creditors can either go to all 4 of us and ask for payment. The creditors can also choose to just come to me for the 100% of the outstanding, which is the $100,000. So, but in the contract, it will say that I am liable 100%, not just a quarter. Yeah.
So I guess before we agree to become a guarantor, we have to be very careful and
Yes.
Consider that we must be prepared and able to pay off 100% of the debt if the case may be, rather than think that, oh, there are 4 of us, so maybe I'm only responsible for 25%. So being a guarantor is as good as also being in debt.
Yes.
Speaking of that, Hui Min, is it true that you also have a service that help small enterprises with debt problems?
Yes, we are actually, we have, okay, about a year ago, there is this scheme that is known as the Sole Proprietor and Partnership Scheme, SPP in short. Very specifically, it has been rolled out to help SPP with a business debt issue. All right. So for small business people, small business owner who has who is sole prop or a partnership type of entity and do have a debt issue for their business loan, okay, they are welcome to come forward. In fact, we do have a free talk for small businesses also. It's conducted once a month in English. Okay, you can go to our website, you can register for it for free also. And my colleague will then share with the audience, what are the things that we can do, and how the scheme work. So you can find out more information before you decide to come forward for help. But yes, we do have credit counseling session, not just for individual consumer like us, salaried employee, but also for small business owners who have a business debt issue.
That's quite important, right? So the provision shop owner, the hawker in the hawker center.
Yes.
These are people with smaller means, and if they get into trouble, they sometimes wonder where they can turn to for help. So it's good that you have such a service. Okay, right. I'm going to take the penultimate, the next question, which is the one on education. So my son wants to take up a degree from a private school. As I don't have enough savings, should I charge to my credit card? Okay, so maybe I take this question. Okay, so credit card, as we discussed earlier, it's one of those high interest source. So if you charge balances, especially if you are unable to pay for it at the end of the month, the credit interest on the balance outstanding is actually very high. At 25%, it only takes 3 years to double that amount of money. So pursuing a education, it's a laudable cause. It is one of those constructive reasons that you may want to borrow money to pay for, because with a better qualification, your son will have better paying jobs, and in future will be able to have sufficient cash flow to pay off the loan. I would say take a look at the various other sources that do provide financing for education. Yes, it's a private school. Now, if it is, for example, one of the accredited local tertiary education, there are MOE tuition loans, and there are also tertiary education loans offered by local and sometimes even foreign banks in Singapore. whereby the terms and conditions are fairly amenable. Some of them don't charge you any interest while your son is studying in school, and interest only accumulate upon graduation. Some charges interest from the day you start borrowing, but typically the interest charge, as far as I know, is relatively lower compared to credit card loan. And there is also another option whereby, as the parent, you can also draw down or withdraw some monies from your own CPF account, as long as you have met certain of the withdrawal criteria. It is under the CPF education scheme. And as you well know, CPF interest rate is 2.5% in the ordinary account. So whatever you withdraw to pay for your children's education, in future when you have to pay back into your CPF account, will only have accrued interest at 2.5%, which is another relatively low interest source compared to credit card. So I guess what I'm saying is that, do your homework, go and do your due diligence and investigate the other borrowing sources, which is lower interest, rather than to rely on your credit card. Okay, Hui Min, you have anything you want to add on that?
No, not really. But I like you. I would really caution people. Avoid charging to your credit card for such a big amount of money, especially when there are alternatives that can probably make it more affordable. So take note of that. Yeah.
All right. The next question. Wow, this one is, I guess, another fairly popular topic nowadays, considering the high cost of buying or investing in properties. So the question goes like this: my property agent friend said there is a new property launch, sure can make a lot of money. So I already live in my home. So he advised or asked me to think about decoupling, to invest in the new launch, in the second property. How does it work? Okay, so typically let me take this question. So typically when we buy property, most of us, especially the first property, most of us buy it with our spouse. Okay, so we are both co-owners and co-borrowers, our matrimonial home. Whilst it is quite expensive, properties in Singapore, I think buying the first property, it's relatively affordable if you were to buy within your means. Okay, so some 80% or more of Singaporeans actually own their own home. Now, where it becomes a little bit more expensive and then tricky, it's subsequent or next property. So whilst you are owning your current matrimonial home, first property, you want to buy another property. So there are a slew of different stamp duties that the government have introduced since, I think, 7 or 8 years ago, with names like additional buyer stamp duties, seller stamp duties, and these stamp duties are fairly complicated. It depends on whether you're buying the first property, second property, third property, whether you're a Singaporean PR, your spouse is Singaporean or PR. So different criteria will attract different percentages of duties payable upfront. So when you buy your next property, the second property, this new launch that your agent friend telling you upfront, you would have to pay this. I don't know. Let's say 10% or 15% as a stamp duties, which is a tax to the government. It's going to add that amount to your purchase price. Now, so decoupling works by saying that you separate, not divorce, separate from your spouse the name or the ownership to your primary property. So you take one of the spouse out of the first property that you purchased. And then because of that, then now your spouse can register or buy this second property as a first property, because he or she no longer owns this first property with you. So that's what decoupling means, basically to separate the ownership so that you and your spouse each will own one property. And because you only own one property, you don't have to pay the stamp duties. But the details are more complicated than that, because first, by taking your name out of the first property, there are it's considered a sale in a way. There are also duties payable. That's point number one. And point number two, it also impacts your borrowing ratios, your TDSR, your MSR, your affordability. Your bank may have to redecide or have to reconsider your eligibility in terms of borrowing. And then your spouse to buy the next property in his or her own name also means that he or she would have to be the only one with one income servicing the loan. And so it also may make affordability more complicated. So long story short, it is not a straightforward process. Do think very carefully should you want to do something like that. Make sure you speak to lawyers, make sure you seek advice, not from your agent friend alone, but from other sources, to make sure that you understand exactly what are your obligations and what are you getting yourself in. Okay, Huimin, very quickly, we are already coming to the end of the hour. So we have still a few more questions, but I'm afraid I can only take one last question this evening. Don't worry, those other questions, I will tell our audience this evening where they can go and get answers or how they can get those answered. Come back to you in a while. So the last question that I'm going to answer this evening is this one. If I'm facing difficulties paying for my loans, credit card bills, Huimin told me first thing, approach credit counseling. So how can credit counseling help me?
Okay, well, before I answer the question, I just want to add a small point on the earlier on question about decoupling. I just want to highlight one thing is that for people who own a HDB, just take note, HDB has its own rules.
Mm-hmm.
So decoupling may means that the couple may have to divorce, before they can decouple. So this is a very important thing to consider.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, that's all. And when it comes to how to come to CCS for help or what can CCS do, as mentioned, we have a 3-step help process. All right, anyone who has a debt issue, you are welcome to approach us. You don't need any referral at all. Okay, and I strongly encourage you to visit our website, which is www.ccs.org.sg. Okay, and then you register for our webinar on how to manage a debt problem, which is conducted every week. All right, and twice a month we have it in Mandarin. Every week we have it in English. Is that correct? I think so. Yeah. Yes, and on top of that, we also have the info talk for small business owners. So in the talk, we will share, what to do, what not to do, so that you don't get yourself into a bigger problem. And we also talk about what are the options to address the debt issue. Okay, how they work. And as mentioned earlier on, we also talk about the legal action or the common actions a creditor may take against me if I do not make payment. All right, so that should prepare you to equip the borrower to know what to do next. All right, and if you really feel like you need to talk to someone to better understand your options, to brainstorm, then after attending the talk, you can submit your counseling request to us. Okay, and we will fix an appointment for you to talk to our credit counselor on a one-to-one basis. So you have the undivided attention of your counselor to help you to understand what is your financial position, to work out a budget, so that you know how much you actually need to leave and how much do you actually have left. And if there's something left and enough left, and if you want to, we may be able to work out a debt management program, DMP in short, monthly installment payment plan, basically that's what it means. And then we will put it up to your creditors and hopefully they agree to accept it. And once the creditors accept, they will contact you to follow up with the necessary paperwork. Okay, and then all you need to do is to honor your words. Since the proposal is put up by you, and if the creditors approve it, all you need to do is to honor your words and make the payment in time, in full, every month. Okay, if you do that, you can see yourself become debt-free in a few years' time. All right, and that is how we can support you, as a facilitator to help you to bring your problem, make known to your creditors, and help you to work out a payment plan, and hopefully the creditors will approve it. Yes, that is what we can do.
Thank you, Huimin. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Wow, so soon it's already the end of the hour. Okay, so with that, we are coming very quickly to the end of this segment. So this is a credit counseling info page. As Hui Min have alluded to earlier, the website is there, the phone number, the address at Carpage Center, behind Center Point, right? Behind Center Point. Behind Center Point, right? So sign up for the webinars, access the useful resources, and take their online debt management course as well. So in short, just remember this: if you have any doubts or any questions, any issues with that, approach credit counseling. Upcoming public sessions, IFL. If you scan this QR code or you go to ifl.org.sg under the events page, you will be able to sign up for our free and complimentary unbiased workshops, and we conduct them several times a month. During this COVID period, it will be online. So do go to our website to find out more about our public sessions. And if you have more questions, as I alluded to earlier, some of the questions this evening did not manage to get answered. We will post them also on this portal called Finlearn, Finlearn, Finlearn. It is a community learning portal whereby all of us can learn from each other. You sign up either using a user ID and a password, or you can use Google or Facebook to sign up. And then you can ask questions such as the ones you asked this evening. My colleagues who's a moderator of the portal will actually answer some of these questions. And you'll be surprised, other participants may have answers or viewpoints to these questions as well, and they will chip in. Don't worry, you can ask these questions anonymously, and you can also answer anonymously, and follow the discussion thread online to learn more and to continue your financial learning journey. Or you can always email us at ifl@spe.sg. Do follow our Facebook page and our other social media sites such as Instagram and Telegram, and of course our website ifl.org.sg. With that, I want to leave you with a teaser for next month. So next month, we are going to touch on the topic of financial habits and behavior. We know that nowadays people talk about fear of missing out. Many of us simply follow the actions of others without due diligence. We find it difficult to save money or procrastinate our financial planning because we discount our future benefits too heavily. So all these are habits and behavior, and they are influenced by how our mind is wired to think and make choices. By learning these behavioral patterns, we can make wiser decisions. So why not come and join us on Tuesday, the 16th of November at 7:30 on IFL Facebook Live, Ask Me Anything, and hear from our panelists as they discuss this topic, and you can also ask your questions. With that, I bid you good evening. Have a safe journey if you are outside, and have the good rest of the week. Stay safe.